Welcome to the I Fired My Boss franchise podcast. My name's Dan Claps, founder and CEO of Franchise Playbook, a franchisor platform where we create, own, and operate dynamic franchise brands in the mobile services space. And my life's goal is to help people just like you fire their boss and become a business owner.
And I'm Christian Dadulak, top franchise consultant and co-founder of Real Franchising, a leading franchise consulting firm. And together, we're on a mission to help people fire their boss, hire themselves, and live the American dream through franchise ownership.
All right. Welcome to another episode of the I Fired My Boss podcast with your co-hosts Dan Claps and Christian Dadulak. Hey, Christian, how are you?
Doing awesome, man. Just enjoying a kind of a quieter day here on the, the 3rd of July. And by the time everyone listens to it, it'll be the 5th. But yeah, man, just kind of now that we're, I guess, done with the first half of the year, just contemplating and thinking about what the second half of the year is going to look like.
Yeah, absolutely. I wish it was a quiet day here, but it seems like we got on my business a lot going on. Good stuff, but just there's no quiet in the Voda household, I guess, on the day before the 4th. But I'm excited about tomorrow. Take a little time off, spend some time with family, and well, our goal here, listeners, is to talk about a little recap of what's going on in franchising that we're seeing and trends. Well, Christian, what are you seeing? What are you seeing in the environment lately with the economy, with franchising in general?
Yeah, man. I think with the economy, things are looking a little bit better in the sense that inflation numbers are coming down. So that's good. I never take anything the Federal Reserve says point blank at face value. I always read between the lines. But it seems like interest rate hikes, at least in the near future, seem like they're going to halt. Although, who knows what things look like long term. But yeah, I think that in terms of franchise business ownership, I do think that if you're the right kind of person, now is always the best time to buy a business. Because, the reality is, I think I covered this a couple episodes ago on a solo episode. I think that anyone that's currently looking into a business or they're thinking about buying a business, they want to be a business owner. I think the further out you put it, like with most things, if you procrastinate and push it out, the odds of you actually pulling the trigger at some point, just dive off a cliff, you're likely not going to do it. So I think that, are there legitimate fears of recession? I think we've been in a recession for quite some time, but I think that there are so many businesses that are out there within franchising that allow you to get into a recession-resistant business with the backing, support, help, coaching, guidance, mentorship of a franchise system that I think there's still tremendous opportunity out there for the right person. If they do have the capacity and the right skill sets and background and mindset to be a business owner. So that's kind of my thought process in terms of where we're at right now.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. To me, I've never allowed an economy or a pandemic or some type of impending change, make too much of a decision on my decisions, because more times than not, the business you're in, if we're talking about starting a business, whether you invest in a business now and then a year from now you have to go through a challenging financial time, or you invest this now during a tough tech time and it gets easier later. Either way, in the business cycle over the next 7 years, you are going to have a time that's hard and you're going to have times that are easy. And sometimes when you go into something and it's hard, you're starting out, it's hard anyway, and then it's going to be easy later, and life will be so much easier because of you've weathered those harder times. Like, I think about my business now, it's much easier for me because I had a much harder business in the past, but I started with my own hands and built up, every single job I did. And now as I lead my company, I'm able to be a little bit less removed, but I've done it. I can go from my experience. So when you get through the hard, the easy is easier. So to me, it's like, if you start a business during easy times, great. You don't have to deal with the hard, but you're going to later. If you start a business during a little bit of a harder time, it's going to be hard anyway. You'll get through it. the time will pass. And then, at the end of the day, it's about starting, right? A business 2 years, 3 years, 5 years in is better than a business 1 year in. I don't care what business it is. And so to me, it sounds a little bit funny, but like when you're ready, as long as you have the cash and the background, everything, it's the right fit. Start before you're ready, because you're going to figure out the rest when the pressure's on.
Right. Well, and that's the benefit of having a franchise system too behind you, because a lot of the trial and error, which we say is more or less been figured out. For every step you take, the franchise has gone a mile. They've already made those steps. They've already made those missteps. So if you're not 100% ready, that's fine, because you're in business for yourself, not by yourself. It's a cliche. We've all heard it 1,000 times within the franchise world, but it's a cliche because it's true. And so I absolutely agree with that. And I think, look, even if you do get started, I mean, regardless of what time you get started in business ownership, whether it's in good times, bad times, up market, down market, flat market, there's going to be challenges of some kind. There's always going to be something. If it's not this, it's going to be that. If it's not that, it's going to be this. There's always going to be something. And, for example, for me, I'm working with a candidate right now who's an awesome candidate. I think has everything it takes to succeed. And, he and I were chatting, and he was thinking about, I might be moving, I might be getting engaged coming up pretty soon. So I'm not sure if this is the right time. And so, look, I had a candid conversation with him where I said, hey, man, I completely hear you. You have to do at the end of the day what you feel is best. But, just understand that if you do walk away from the table, odds of you coming back are slim. Not to say that you won't do it, but I also let him know, like I asked him, do you think that when you start this business that life things aren't going to come up? Like people aren't going to get sick? If you do get engaged now, that you're not going to have to plan a wedding, or if you do move at some point. I mean, there's things that happen. There's always going to be life things. There's going to be business things, business challenges that come up. And so at the end of the day, what it really has to come down to is, are you making a decision out of fear, out of faith? And are you like the decisions that we convince ourselves are logical and rational oftentimes aren't. And so I think it's important to take a step back and to have someone to politely nudge you in the right direction, or at least ask questions in a way where it makes you rethink your own logic in a sense, because I do completely think that a lot of people think that, I have to wait for the right time to start a business, not just in terms of where the economy is at, but where my personal economy is at, where my personal life is. Maybe there's some things that need to change, but look, you're going to have like home improvement projects when you have a business, right? There's things you're going to do there. You're going to move within towns. Family members, unfortunately, will maybe get sick and pass away. Those things, just life in general, is going to happen whether or not you own a business, and business challenges will happen. So I think even when that's happening and there are certain things up in the air, it's not necessarily a reason not to move forward, but you have to ask yourself, is it really a legitimate condition to not move forward, where like I can't move forward? It doesn't make sense to, or am I just a little bit nervous? And so I think that's something that people should ask themselves as they're going through that process.
Yeah, I think when people are making a decision to invest in a franchise, if they're torn between a few, that one I always say either one is going to, like, at one point, if you're working, especially with a franchise consultant, the brands are all great brands. They're cars. You're going to drive the car, and maybe it's a BMW versus a Mercedes. If it's going to crash, though, it's not going to be the car. It's going to be the driver usually, right? And, when I look at getting into a business, anytime I've started a business, like including now, yesterday, I was with our franchise development director, Steve Miller, and he asked me if I thought that this business would be as hard as it is, being a franchisor. And my answer was, yes, I knew it would be hard. And what I didn't know was what hard it would be, whether it would be hard because it's moving fast. Is it hard because we're struggling? Is it hard because, I don't have the right people? Or like, what is the hard? I didn't know that. I knew it would be hard though. And frankly, I wouldn't want to know what the hard was a year ago, because for me, the hard that I have to deal with, the challenges that I have to deal with are worth it because I'm so in love with my business, right? It's just like having, kids. I feel like if you like knew all the challenges of having a kid where, no one tells you every single thing you're gonna have to go through, and then you have kids, right? And it's, you love them. So to me, getting in a business, yeah, it's going to be hard and there's going to be challenges, but you don't want to know every challenge either. Just get into it, get it going. You'll deal with the challenges more likely than not. They're not things that are going to stop, they're not going to shut you down. They're just challenges. again, any business, the first 2 or 3 years is a little hard, and then it gets easier if you're doing it right. So I think the last thing I'll say about this is like, I find it funny or interesting when I talk to candidates and they don't want to work hard anymore. And I'll always say, I understand that, but you worked really hard for 30 years for someone else. And now you're starting your own business. Can you give me 18 months or 24 months of working as hard as you did for that boss, maybe a little harder even for yourself? Can you give yourself 2 months? Can you work hard for yourself for 2 years and then? And I promise you, if you look down for your own business, if you just block out all the distractions that are not important, and you put all of your focus onto just that business outside of your family and health, you look up 18 months from now and you're in a whole different scenario. Then you can wind back and be less involved. And so that's how I think of starting a business. No matter what, it's going to be hard. Just get through it. Those 24 months go faster if you just get started. You're already starting the time clock, you know?
So true. I love what you said about it being like raising kids. I think, yeah, I think if we all knew what challenges were ahead of us, whether it's kids or starting a business. I mean, I've heard many big time entrepreneurs, like, I don't know if you know Nick Bear, who founded BPN Supplements, but he's pretty big on Instagram, and I've listened to his podcast a little bit. And he said, look, if I knew what it was going to take to build my supplement company, I probably wouldn't have started. I probably wouldn't have done it because
Right.
it just seems so daunting.
Yeah.
But when you're in it and it's, it's one thing at a time and you're just focus on putting one step in front of the other, you get through it. And I'm sure, I don't have kids. I hope to someday, but I'm sure it's the same thing with kids. And it's also, like you said, can you give me 18 or 24 months? It's the old airplane and rocket ship analogy, right? I mean, most of the fuel when Elon Musk is blasting off into space with SpaceX, most of that fuel expenditure is right just getting off the ground. Takes the most energy, the most time, the most focus. And then then you get to, you break through the stratosphere, and then you don't need as much, right? And it's the same thing with an airplane. Getting off the ground takes a second, takes a lot of focus, intensity, fuel, but then you reach a cruising altitude and then you're chilling. But you just got to get off the ground. You got to take off.
I love that. That's a great analogy. I'm going to keep that in mind. What you mix the two. It's an engine taking off, rocket taking off, all the energies in the beginning or plane. And then I also think of franchising. Now I tell people franchising is not like, I used to relate franchising to cooking. It's like cooking, follow a recipe. But I realized that when you cook, you can eyeball things. And I'm Italian, so when we cook, we throw a little extra, sauce and a little extra butter. But you can eyeball it, right? I actually now like to equate franchising to baking. Because when you bake, it's exact. You can't make a mistake. One little mistake can ruin the whole thing. And so when you get a franchise, you just follow the system like baking.
I love that.
We said we'd make this one short. Thank you for our listeners. I've been missing some podcasts, so thanks for listening to me this time. And Christian.
Yeah. Absolutely, man. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Just, I guess, some parting words before we wrap up here. Wanted to make it a quick, short episode. I know everyone's probably super busy coming off of the longer weekend. Hope you had an amazing time at the 4th of July and a good long weekend with friends and family. And just remember, look, we're halfway done with 2023 at this point. You think about what you're going to do, what the rest of 2023 is going to look like. And more importantly, now is the time to start setting yourself up for 2024. So to make 2024 even better, now is the time to ramp things up and start building it. So, use this time to do that. And hopefully your the latter half, the second half of 2023 is amazing for you. Before we do wrap up, I just quickly want to give an amazing shout out to our sponsors and partners over at Silicone Signs. You've heard us talk about them a few episodes now. Chase and his team over there just absolutely amazing at what they do. Anything that you need as a franchisee or a franchisor, if you want help with interior and exterior signage for your franchisees, Chase and his team at Silicon Signs, they're your guys. They've done work with amazing franchise systems like Capriotti Sandwiches, Wing Zone, Handles Ice Cream, Crumble Cookies, Dirty Dough. So these are not small franchises. These are amazing franchises out there. So they do some very quality work. They don't have salespeople, so that allows them to pass on a lot of those that savings to their clients and their customers. They're going to help walk you through the entire process. So you have a partner that's guiding you through the signage process. So you're not having to worry about, am I doing it the right way? Am I taking the right steps in the right order? The order of operations is done because they're your partner with you. So if you have an interest in at least checking them out and setting up a call with them, go to www.siliconesigns.com. Again, siliconesigns.com, and schedule some time to meet up with them. And if you're a franchisor and I would like to speak with Chase directly, you can email him at chase@siliconesigns.com and set up a call with him. On their website, they also have an inquiry you can fill out to set up a brief call as well, get some information. So again, siliconesigns.com. Thank you guys so much for your partnership and allowing us to continue to put on this podcast, because it's not free to do. So thanks, guys. See you on the next episode of the I Fired My Boss franchise podcast.
You're f***ing fired.
If you want to say those words to your boss, make sure you head on over to ifiredmybosspodcast.com and fill out the form to schedule a no-cost consultation. And if you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share with a friend who might also want to fire their boss.